In 2018, geneticists testing blood samples from the Bajau people of Indonesia found something no textbook could explain: spleens nearly 50% larger than the human average, letting men and women dive over 200 feet on a single breath, with no tank, no fins, and no oxygen tube for minutes at a time. And the Bajau are not alone. Scattered across the planet are small, isolated populations whose bodies have quietly rewritten the rules of human survival. Arteries at 80 that look 30 years younger, lungs built to pull oxygen from air most humans cannot use, genes borrowed from a species that went extinct 40,000 years ago. Scientists have studied them for decades and still cannot fully explain how. Join us and let's discover the tribes whose bodies broke every law of human biology. Let's go.
Number 13. Toraja. A family in the highlands of South Sulawesi keeps their dead grandmother inside the house for up to 3 years, feeding her, dressing her, talking to her every morning. Because to the Toraja people, a stopped heart does not mean a person has died. It means they have fallen sick. When a family finally saves enough, sometimes decades later, they hold the Rambu Solo, a funeral that can run for weeks and pull in thousands of guests. Water buffalo are slaughtered by the dozen, and the single most prized bloodline, a rare black and white animal with pale blue eyes called the Tedong Bonga, can sell for the price of a house. In most of the world, people save for retirement. In Toraja, people save an entire lifetime for a funeral. The bodies are never buried underground. They are carved into tombs high inside limestone cliffs, watched over by life-sized wooden effigies dressed in the deceased's own clothing, staring out over the valley forever. And every few years in August, families reopen those tombs, lift out their mummified relatives, clean them, and dress them in new clothes. A ritual called menene that outsiders call morbid, and the Toraja call reunion. But death rituals built to defy biology are not unique to one island, and the next one runs on a rule stranger than anything a tomb wall can hide.
Number 12. Kalash. In a village high in the Hindu Kush, women are sent away from their own homes every time they menstruate or give birth into a communal house by the river called the Bashali, and the men of the tribe are forbidden from ever touching its walls. Fewer than 4,000 Kalash remain, practicing an ancient religion of mountain fairies and nature gods in the middle of one of the most conservative Islamic regions on Earth, and many of their children are born with pale skin, blonde hair, and eyes the color of glass, a trait that fueled a legend for centuries claiming they descended from the lost soldiers of Alexander the Great. Genetic testing found something stranger. The Kalash split off from other South Asian populations roughly 12,000 years ago and then almost stopped mixing entirely, leaving their DNA nearly frozen in time, a living genetic fossil hiding in plain sight in the mountains. Their marriage laws break every regional norm around them. A married Kalash woman can leave her husband for another man at any moment, as long as the new husband pays double the original bride price back. And in a region where alcohol is banned by both law and faith, the Kalash openly grow vineyards and ferment their own wine for festivals few outsiders are ever permitted to witness. Isolation like that reshapes more than customs. In one tribe further south, it reshaped an entire immune system instead.
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this.
Number 11. Himba. The women of northern Namibia's Kakoland have never bathed in water, not once in their entire lives, and their skin glows a deep burnt red that most outsiders mistake for paint. It is not paint. It is otjize, a mixture of butterfat, crushed red ochre, and aromatic resin, worn because the Himba find it beautiful, a living symbol of the red earth and the blood of life. Hidden inside that beauty is a survival mechanism scientists only decoded recently. The The fat locks moisture into the skin in one of the driest climates on the planet, while the iron-rich ochre reflects ultraviolet radiation like a natural sunblock built from dirt. Instead of water, Himba women take daily smoke baths, kneeling over smoldering coals layered with herbs from the Commiphora tree and trapping the smoke under a blanket. And when researchers analyzed those herbs, they found compounds that actively kill bacteria like E. coli and staph, a working antibacterial system that uses zero water. Their social structure runs on a rule almost no other culture on Earth follows. Every Himba person belongs to 2 clans at once, cattle passing down through the mother's bloodline, spiritual authority through the father's, centered on a sacred fire believed to be a direct line to their ancestors. That fire is now under threat from a dam project neither government asked their permission to build. And the next tribe on this list is fighting a war of its own, only theirs is against time itself.
Number 10. Hunza. For decades, Western magazines told the world that members of the Hunza tribe in northern Pakistan routinely lived past 150 years old, disease-free, kept young by apricots and glacial water, until a physician named John Clark moved in among them, treated thousands of patients, and checked the real numbers. Using dental wear and other biological markers instead of the folklore ages villagers gave him, Clark found the supposed 150-year-olds were actually 60 to 75, and far from disease-free, the Hunza were quietly battling malaria, dysentery, and severe iodine deficiency the whole time the world was calling them immortal. What survived the correction is stranger than the myth it replaced. Their language, Burushashki, has no known relative anywhere else on the planet, a total linguistic island with no explanation for how it got there. Their villages sit above 8,000 feet on cliff sides so steep that ordinary farming demands punishing daily exertion, a brutal, unglamorous fitness regimen with no gym and no choice involved. Whatever kept the Hunza alive that long was never a fountain of youth. It was gravity, altitude, and decades of climbing. And one valley over, another isolated people were about to prove the human body can be reshaped even faster, not by mountains, but by open water.
Number 9. Raramuri. Members of the Raramuri people of northern Mexico have been recorded running over 200 miles without stopping, wearing sandals cut from old car tires, chasing deer for hours across the Copper Canyon until the animal's own heart simply gives out beneath it. Their own name for themselves translates to the light-footed people, and researchers who studied their stride found a naturally efficient 4-foot-first running form that dramatically reduces the joint damage that wrecks most long-distance runners' knees over a lifetime. Running was never a sport for the Raramuri. It was communication between villages scattered across canyon walls, and it was hunting, because a human body, unlike a deer's, can sweat and cool down for hours straight, eventually outlasting an animal 4 times faster on raw endurance alone. Their traditional diet of beans, corn, and squash, almost entirely free of processed sugar, has been linked in multiple studies to remarkably low rates of diabetes and heart disease compared to the rest of the country around them. When elite Western ultramarathoners finally traveled to the canyon to race them in the early 2000s, trained professionals with modern gear lost, repeatedly, to farmers in tire sandals who had never seen a treadmill. And somewhere else on Earth, an entirely different population was quietly proving that endurance was never really the ceiling at all.
Number 7. Hadza. Hadza hunters in Tanzania walk between 13 and 19,000 steps a day chasing game across brutal terrain. And researchers using the gold standard method for measuring energy expenditure expected their bodies to torch far more calories than an average office worker's, then found the numbers came back nearly identical. That single result did not just confuse a handful of scientists in a lab. It quietly undercut the assumption behind every calorie-counting app on every phone on the planet, the idea that more movement always means more calories burned, and forced an entire industry to reconsider what exercise is actually for. The real explanation is called constrained energy expenditure. The human body runs on a fixed energy budget, so when physical activity rises, the body quietly cuts spending elsewhere, mostly chronic inflammation and overactive stress hormones, which is likely why the roughly 1,300 Hadza left on Earth have almost no heart disease or autoimmune illness,
despite burning no extra calories at all. Around Lake Eyasi, they still live with no farms, no livestock, and no stored food, eating whatever they find that same day. And to locate wild honey, hunters whistle to a bird called the greater honey guide, which chatters back and physically leads them to hidden beehives, a working language between two species that has survived for generations. If walking can quietly rewrite fitness science, the next body on this list rewrites something even the walls of a hospital cannot explain.
Number 8. Kion. 20 pounds of stacked brass coil pressed down on a Kion girl's collarbone every single day of her life, starting around age 4 or 5, slowly pushing her ribs and shoulder girdle downward until the compression creates the visual illusion of an impossibly long neck. Medical studies comparing coil-wearing Kion women to those without found real, measurable damage: deformed spinal alignment, reduced lung capacity, restricted blood flow throughout the body, even reduced blood flow reaching the brain, with elevated biological markers of chronic stress showing up in blood work decade after decade. The rings themselves never touch the neck bones directly, and removing them after years of wear can be dangerous, since the neck muscles have weakened under the redistributed weight for so long that some women choose never to take them off again. There is a darker, modern layer stacked on top of the physical one. After fleeing conflict in Myanmar, many Kion families ended up in Thai refugee villages that became tourist attractions, criticized by human rights groups as human zoos, where women face financial pressure to keep wearing the coils for visitors rather than tradition. A body reshaped by brass is one kind of transformation. Somewhere in the Amazon, an entire people reshaped their feet and ankles instead, and they used that transformation to survive in a forest that kills almost everyone else who enters it. Number 6. Wawarani. The Wawarani people of Ecuador's Amazon killed any outsider who crossed into their territory for generations, including 5 American missionaries speared to death in 1956 and lived in total self-imposed isolation until 1958, their own language splitting the entire world into exactly 2 categories: the Wawarani, meaning the people, and everyone else, the Kawadi, the non-people. To hunt in the high forest canopy, they fire 9-foot blowguns loaded with darts coated in curare, a neurotoxin that paralyzes prey almost instantly, yet leaves the meat completely safe to eat afterward, a poison lethal in the blood and harmless in the stomach. Generations of climbing dense canopy have physically reshaped their bodies at a biomechanical level. Many Wawarani have unusually wide, splayed feet, built for gripping smooth bark, and researchers studying tree climbing populations found elongated calf muscle fibers that let them bend their ankles to angles close to a chimpanzee's, planting a flat foot directly against a vertical trunk to save enormous amounts of energy on every single climb. Their land now sits on top of massive oil reserves, and in 2019, led by a Wawarani woman named Nemonte Nenkimo, later named one of the most influential people alive, the tribe won a landmark lawsuit that permanently protected 500,000 acres of rainforest, a fight that is nowhere near finished. Their bodies adapted to trees. The next people on this list adapted to something that should be biologically impossible to adapt to at all: seeing underwater with nothing but bare human eyes.
Number 5. Moken. Moken children in the Andaman Sea can see clearly underwater with their bare eyes, no goggles, no mask, an ability that should not be biologically possible in a human being. On land, water blurs human vision badly, but Moken children constrict their pupils to an extreme degree while reshaping their eye lenses to the outer limit of what a human eye can physically do, giving them roughly double the underwater clarity of a European child the same age. This is not genetic. When researchers trained European children with the same underwater drills for several months, they developed the identical ability, meaning this power is sitting latent inside every human eye on Earth, simply never switched on. Moken freedivers can hold their breath for minutes and descend over 60 feet, using nothing but handmade wooden goggles.
living almost entirely on boats off the coasts of Myanmar and Thailand, sharing everything immediately because hoarding is treated as a genuine social offense. In 2004, when the Indian Ocean tsunami killed roughly 230,000 people, the Moken suffered almost no casualties because ancestral folklore warned that if the sea suddenly pulls back, the wave that eats people is coming, and they ran for high ground before modern instruments ever detected the danger. That knowledge is now being erased faster than any wave could erase it, as park regulations push Moken families off the water entirely. And underwater vision is not even the most extreme adaptation on this list, because the human body has one more organ left to reshape.
Number 4. Tsimane. Doctors scanning the arteries of the Tsimane people in the Bolivian Amazon found the cleanest cardiovascular system ever recorded in any human population on the planet. Nearly 9 out of 10 adults with completely clear arteries, and an 80-year-old Tsimane typically carrying the artery health of an American in their mid-50s. What makes this genuinely confusing for modern nutrition science is the diet behind it. Roughly 72% of Tsimane calories come from carbohydrates like plantains and cassava, with only 14% from fat, the near opposite of most heart health advice, and yet their hearts stay pristine into old age. Buried inside that health is a strange trade-off researchers call the parasite paradox. Around 70% of the Tsimane carry intestinal parasites like hookworms for most of their lives, and those parasites appear to calm and regulate the immune system, lowering the chronic inflammation that drives heart disease elsewhere in the world. A 2025 study confirmed that Tsimane largely escape inflammaging, the steady rise in inflammation the rest of humanity experiences with age, while a neighboring group that had already adopted a modern lifestyle showed the usual decline. That protection is fading fast as roads bring in processed cooking oil, and the first signs of modern disease are now appearing in a population that had almost none. Proof that a healthy heart can be undone in a single generation, right as another tribe's ancient genetics reach back further than any diet study ever could.
The San people of southern Africa carry maternal DNA tracing back roughly 150 to 170,000 years to the same genetic root scientists call mitochondrial Eve, making them the closest living relatives to the mother of every human being alive today. A population that has quietly outlasted empires, ice ages, and every other lineage on the family tree. Their languages are built around click consonants, snapped against different parts of the mouth and woven seamlessly into ordinary speech. And their society runs on strict equality. No chiefs, no hierarchy. Arrogance shut down through gentle public mockery whenever it appears. Their most extraordinary skill has nothing to do with weapons and everything to do with reading. Following a wounded animal for days across open sand, sand trackers pull a complete story out of a few disturbed grains: age, sex, speed, direction, timing. And when researchers scanned their brains during a track, the activity looked almost identical to a fluent adult reading a page of text, meaning tracking may be one of the oldest forms of literacy on Earth, written in dust instead of ink. If sand genetics reach back 170,000 years into the human story, one tribe left on this list reaches back even further, carrying DNA borrowed from a species of human that has not existed on this planet in 40,000 years.
Sherpa. Buried inside Sherpa DNA is a gene called EPAS1 that lets their bodies use oxygen with extraordinary efficiency at altitudes that kill unprepared climbers within hours. And in 2014, geneticists traced that gene to an unexpected source: interbreeding with Denisovans, an extinct human species that vanished from the planet roughly 40,000 years ago, meaning Sherpa bodies are quietly running biological software inherited from a species that exists nowhere else on Earth. Most human bodies respond to low oxygen by producing more red blood cells, which thickens the blood dangerously the longer someone stays at altitude. Sherpa bodies do something researchers are still working to fully map: keeping blood thinner while extracting more usable energy from every molecule of oxygen that reaches the muscle, a metabolic trick most human biology simply cannot replicate.
Studies on Sherpa mitochondria, the tiny engines inside every cell, found their tissue burns fuel with less waste and less oxidative damage than lowland populations, even while resting, doing nothing at all. Every year, thousands of Everest climbers depend on Sherpa guides to survive conditions their own bodies were never built for, borrowing the safety of a gene that came from a species that no longer walks the earth. And one tribe left on this list did not borrow an ancient trait from another species. It grew an entire organ larger to make the impossible possible on its own.
Bajau. Bajau divers carry spleens nearly 50% larger than the human average, an organ most people never think about twice, suddenly the key to one of the most extreme physical adaptations ever documented in a living population. In 2018, geneticists drawing blood from the Bajau people, the so-called sea nomads of Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, found the trait traced to a specific gene called PDE10A, present even in Bajau children and adults who had never dived a single day in their lives. Proof this is not training, it is inherited biology, built over centuries of a life lived almost entirely at sea. The spleen acts as a natural oxygen tank, storing red blood cells and releasing them into the bloodstream mid-dive, and a spleen 50% larger means a bigger reserve tank built directly into the body from birth. Bajau divers, some spending up to 60% of their working day underwater, descend over 200 feet and stay submerged for more than 10 minutes on a single breath, using nothing but hand-carved wooden goggles and sometimes a rock tied to the waist as a weight. Many Bajau are born stateless, holding citizenship in none of the 3 countries whose waters their families have called home for generations. And as coral reefs collapse and fishing zones shrink around them, this living proof that the human body can still evolve in real time is running out of ocean left to prove it in.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.